on the 21st of March, the day of Sharpeville, I had an interview with the president of the Indian Congress, Dr. Naika. And when I walked in to see him that evening, he immediately said, "Look, Walter Sisulu is looking for you. He's going to phone you at 7 o'clock. So we can do your interview quickly, but you need to talk to him." I didn't know what it was. And Walter, when he phoned, he asked me, and I said, "You know, I'm here, I'm in Durban." He said, "Frene, all the plans that we had been talking about have to proceed immediately. So please go and visit your parents." I said, "When?" "Immediately." I gathered from his tone that he meant immediately. My parents lived in Maputo, in Lorenzo Marx as it then was. So the next morning, I went to the airport, bought a ticket to Lorenzo Marx, and flew out of South Africa. That's how I went into exile. And I had no idea what I was going to do, except now I had some assurances from Tanganyika. So I knew if I could get Oliver Tambo to Tanganyika. By now, there were all sorts of stories about where he was, what he was doing. Dr. Dadu, Yusuf Dadu, a former president of the Indian Congress, had joined him. And so had a journalist, Ronald Siegel, who had been asked to drive him to Bechuanaland. It was still a British colony. We had to charter a plane to get them out. There was no way they could transit the Central African Federation. And Christian Action agreed that they would fund the plane, if I could find one, to take them there. So I found a company that flew regularly. But before I could do much, because the news leaked, they closed down Francistown Airport. You see? So in a sense, everything was being done on a day-to-day basis. There was no plan, no scheme beforehand, because things were just happening. But anyway, we found a plane, and I asked them if they would fly to Dar es Salaam. No way without refueling. So one had to take a chance. I took a chance that Britain could not afford a problem in Malawi, or Nyasaland as it was. They had already put Dr. Banda, who was the president of the Nyasaland African Congress, in prison. And they were in trouble in Britain over that, about his imprisonment. So I suggested that this pilot refueled in Blantyre. He said, yes, that was possible. Accordingly, we made arrangements. I'd asked the government of India then to give us travel documents. I had a passport. So the government of India sent travel documents. I'd warned the people in Bechuanaland, please make sure you have photographs. So very early in the morning, I went to the airport, handed over the travel documents which had been sent to me, to the pilot, said, give this to my passengers. I suspect he knew what was going on. I also had a press conference, for which my journalist friends have never forgiven me, to say they were coming through by land, because I wanted to divert attention. And having handed over to him, I went to the main airport and flew out on a commercial flight of Bechuanaland, out of, Salisbury, where I was. When I got to Blantyre, where I had to hand over documents to the lawyers because we had legal opinions saying these people should not be sent back to South Africa because the law said from whence they came, and that they should fight if there was a problem, that these people should be sent back to Bechuanaland. Now this had obviously worked because the next morning, and I went to Dar es Salaam, Dr. Julius Nyerere was contacted, and he went and saw the governor, the British governor, informed him that South African leaders were arriving, and he wanted to be assurance that they would be afforded hospitality in Tanganyika. And the message came back to me through the contact that yes, that's fine. So that was the basis. The next morning when they landed in Blantyre, there were warrants for their arrest, including one for me, because the assumption was that I had taken the chartered flight. But they forgot that Nyasaland was a different jurisdiction. but the lawyers were aware, the warrants could not be executed in Blantyre, in Nyasaland. So they were going to have to go back and get a warrant for Nyasaland. But early the next morning, these people flew out. So the warrants were never executed. They came to Dar es Salaam. And I suppose that was the first step in setting up the external mission of the ANC.